At this time, I want to prepare us for our history bit today.
Yes.
And as you know, we are in the season of the winter solstice.
Yes.
And in this congregation, in this ministry, we are always concerned about making Zion aware of the ancient faith,
Yes.
of the ancient way in which our Messianic Israelite predecessors transitioned and carried out the faith.
Yes.
And so we want to make Zion aware of many of the things that are celebrated during this season.
Yes.
About 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I think it was, I had shared something about the paganism of December 25th.
Yes.
On today, I'm going to be sharing some information about the Yule Tree. And I'm going to provide a reading, but I also have some images that I want to share as well.
Yes.
Brother George, if you would come, I'd like for you to pass these out.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind.
Not a problem.
Now, we have taught many times about how much of the celebration of the winter solstice and December 25th has its background in the pagan customs. And we share this because there are many within the framework of the Christian world who are unaware of much of the history and the background regarding what they celebrate. So I wanted to not just read something today on the Yule Tree, but I wanted to present some images.
Yes.
Sometimes when we read information, we hear it and we question it without really having a visual picture as to what the pagans actually celebrated prior to Messiah. So today I have provided some images. I have provided some form of a description of what those who practice what we call Yule actually do, what they actually celebrate, and how they honor December 25th. I want to present a reading that I found, and this reading that I found actually comes from a website entitled, listen to this, earthwitchery.com, the Yule Tree. Now one might ask, why are you reading something from a website that deals with witchery? Well, Zion, I want you to get a perspective from the background of where all of this comes from and what it has meant to those who have been celebrating this for over 6,000 years. Very important. So this is an aspect of one of the celebrations by those who live in the regions of Europe, in the West, because this is where the Yule Tree comes from. The whole Christmas tree, as many enjoy and decorate, it comes from this, the Yule Tree. The Celtic Druids venerated evergreen trees as manifestations of deity and as symbols of the universe. To the Celts, These trees were sacred because they did not die from year to year like the deciduous trees. These are your pine trees. We see a lot of these here in the Pacific Northwest, and that is because the Pacific Northwest has a climate much like the climate in the European Germanic countries where the Yule tree and its development came from. They therefore represented the eternal aspect of the goddess who also never dies. Their greenery as symbolic of the hope for the sun's return.
Yes.
I'll pause for a minute. The purpose of this Yule tree is to be as a symbol of the return of the sun, or the rebirth or birthday of the sun. See, during winter solstice, which occurs on the 21st and 22nd of December, the sun goes through a stopping. It stops. It's called solstice because solstice means the stopping of the sun.
Yes.
The shortest day of the year is on solstice, which is either the 21st or the 22nd of December. And once it stops, it reaches its moment where it will be the shortest day. The shortest day just simply means that it has the least amount of sunlight. Being in Alaska last year, I was able to experience what the shortest day was like. We only have about 4 to 5 hours of sunlight.
Yes.
We were able to really experience it in an extreme way. But what happens is, after 3 days, bringing you to the 24th and 25th of December, the sun begins the process of lengthening its daylight.
Yes.
And to the pagan, that signified that the sun, which had beforehand died, had now been reborn and had come back. So with the trees, they represented this. I'll keep reading and it will give the explanation for the decorations on the tree, so you'll know where this came from. The Druids decorated the evergreen trees at Yule with all the images of the things they wished the waxing year to bring. Fruits for successful harvest, love charms for happiness, nuts for fertility, and coins for wealth adorn the trees. These were forerunners to many of the images on today's Christmas trees. Candles were the forerunners for today's electric tree lights. In Scandinavia, Yule trees were brought inside to provide a warm and festive place for tree elementals who inhabited the woodlands. Now, if you don't know what this means when it says tree elementals who inhabited the woodlands, these are spirits of the woods. The belief was that you bring the tree in the house and you bring the spirits of the woods into the house with the tree so that they can have warmth. This is what it meant. This was also a good way to coax the native fairy folk. Any of y'all heard of the fairies? You know, the ones who have the wings that fly around?
Yes.
This is all a part of that celebration.
Yes.
It says this was a good way to coax the native fairy folk to participate in solstice rituals. Some believe the Saxons were the first to place candles in the tree.
Yes.
Gradually, sacred tree imagery was absorbed and minimalized by the Christian church, but it was never able to destroy trees' resonance within our collective unconscious completely. We realize when we plant a tree, we are encouraging the earth to breathe. Now, mind you, this is the perspective of those who put this article together because they practice paganism.
Mm-hmm.
And when we decorate our evergreen trees at Yule, we're making a symbol of our dream world with the objects we hang upon it.
Yes.
Perhaps a chain or garland reflecting the linking of all together on earth. Lights for the light of human consciousness. Animal figures who serve as our totems. Fruit and colors that nourish and give beauty to our world. Gold and silver for prosperity. Treats and nuts that blend sweet and bitter, just as in real life.
Yeah.
The trees we decorate now with symbols of our perfect worlds actually animate what we esteem and what we hope for in the coming year. As from this night, the light returns, reborn. The decorating of the tree. It gives information about some of the things that are a part of it. It says it is best to use a live tree, but if you can't, you perform an outdoor ritual thanking the tree, making sure to leave it a gift when you're finished. So if you wonder where the gifts and all of that under the tree comes from, this is where it all comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with Christianity at all.
No.
Starting a seed for a new tree to be planted at Beltane. Beltane is also a part of the winter solstice celebration.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read a little something here also about some of the things that are put on the tree, what they represent.
Mm-hmm.
String popcorn and cranberries and hang them on the Yule tree. Decorate pine cones with glue and glitter as symbols of the fairies and place them on the Yule tree. Glue the caps onto acorns and attach them with a red string to hang on the Yule tree. Hang little bells on the Yule tree to call the spirits and the fairies. Hang robin and wren ornaments on the tree. The robin is the animal equivalent to the oak king, the wren of the holly king. Each Yule and midsummer, they play out the same battle as two kings. Hang 6-spoke snowflakes on the branches of the tree. The witch's rune or Haggalas has 6 spokes. Hang sun, moon, star.
Yes.
Holly king, fairy, or fruit decorations. So all of these things that are mentioned with reference to the tree are all symbolic of the things that the pagans worship.
Yes.
Their chief deity of worship is the sun, the moon, stars, and the spirits that are associated with them. All of these things were put on the tree, and they symbolized the return of the sun and the cosmos, which is what they worship.
Yes.
If you read in Jeremiah chapter number 10, which is a very familiar passage, I want to read that to us real quickly. It makes a statement that is associated with the tree, with the sun, the moon, the
Yes.
stars, of which they celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah chapter 10. Verse 1, and I'm going to read through to the third verse. It says, "Hear the word that Yahuwah speaks to you, O house of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Thus says Yahuwah, do not learn the ways of the nations, or be dismayed at the signs of the heavens." I'm going to pause for a moment. The signs of the heavens refer to the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Yes.
These are the things that the pagans worship.
Mm-hmm.
For the nations are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are false. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of an artisan. Verse 4, people deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with a hammer and nails so that it cannot move. Now, our scriptures record that these practices were not something that were new, but something very ancient.
Mm-hmm.
Very ancient. And while the 4th century Western church made a decision to make the birthday of the Messiah to be on December 25th,
Mm-hmm.
and much of the present Western church has accepted that particular day for observing the birth of the Messiah.
Yes.
Much of the present day Western church is unaware of the fact that what is called Christmas was only to be a worship service that commemorated the birth of the Messiah.
Yes.
No more, no less.
Less.
However, all of these traditions that were held by the pagans were absorbed into this now holiday,
Mm-hmm.
because the Western Catholic Church did not want to lose the support of those pagans whom they were Christianizing.
Yes.
In their mind, it was in the best interest to allow them to continue to practice what they had been practicing for generations, but to just overlay it with a Christian context. Instead of Mithra or the god Odin, Yule is a term that's associated with Odin, which is what we've been talking about. Instead of using those terms for the deities, now Christ has become the one whom is to be looked to.
Yes.
Instead of Odin being called the light of the world, Christ is called the light of the world. And so all of these connotations came about with a Christian overlay.
Yes.
But we must ask, was the Christmas tree, as we see it today, was that something that was practiced throughout all of the so-called Christian community? No, it wasn't.
No.
It was only held by the Western Christian church. We have an example of this difference. If you look at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, who celebrates the Christ Mass on January the 6th.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
In their celebration, they do not have a Christmas tree, nor do they give gifts, but it is a worship and an honoring of the Messiah. And they have a feast among the celebrants where they eat and enjoy each other's company, and they play games. But there is no tree, no decorating of it, no putting presents underneath it. And as I began to read and to ask questions, I wanted to find out, well, why does the Ethiopian Orthodox Church not follow the same pattern as the Western churches? And as I began to read and do my research, I found out that one of their religious leaders, they call him a Abuna, that's like father, had said that the reason why we do not set up trees is because it is not a part of our culture. What that means is that the whole practice and celebration that we see all over the Christian world in the West never had anything to do with the quote unquote Christian church worldwide. It has been specific towards the European West because it comes directly out of their pagan systems of worship that were not taught against, but absorbed, so that the Roman Catholic Church would have a greater control and allegiance by the people. So when Christian preachers say that, well, we decorate the Christmas tree because Jesus died on a tree.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do
Yeah.
with the ancient faith at all. It is only a means of preserving an existing practice to continue its celebration and justify it. So Zion, I had to share this with you today. I know many that probably are watching me by live stream who love the 25th of December celebrations because they have a lot of attachments to it, family attachments to it, and all of those things. I know that we all love family and we all love our memories and those things that we have made over the years. But as a servant of Elohim, I've had to come to terms and to personally draw my line in the sand that while I love my family and I enjoy being with them and I enjoy giving to them and receiving from them, I must hold true to how my ancient Messianic Israelite predecessors practiced their faith and how they believe. And I must say no to any forms and representations of paganism. And so this is something that I strongly teach because I have to, as a servant of the Most High, as we are returning back to what the Most High desires, because we are in the season of what is called the times of the restitution of all things. The Most High is bringing everything back to the original design. And so while I know that this may be uncomfortable for many, it is something that we must come to terms with reference to the facts, the historical facts concerning our faith and what we're going to do as we move forward. So I trust this information has been helpful to you, that it has caused you to rethink some things so that we might carry out our faith in a way that we understand from Scripture pleases the Most High.
Yes.
The Most High be praised.